Hello and welcome to the Game 3 podcast. I'm your host, Sam Ficini. We are presented by The Athletic. Today on the show, Adam Spinella is in the building. That's probably as loud as my voice is going to get throughout this entire podcast because, as you might be able to tell, I'm a little bit nasally right now. I think that coming back from Las Vegas, being in all of that terrible recycled air and just air conditioning and just grossness that is Las Vegas. Apologies if you live there. It's genuinely my least favorite city on planet Earth because of all of this. As soon as I got back, my sinuses just completely exploded. And I think I have like a sinus infection right now. So Adam and I are going to go for like an hour today. We're going to talk mostly about how the rookie class performed at Summer League this year. A lot about Victor Wembanyama, Scoot Henderson, Brandin Miller, the Thompson twins, Summer League MVP Cam Whitmore, folks. I'm just ecstatic and elated about Summer League MVP Cam Whitmore. Would have been my pick. Let's be clear about that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But really, really excited about the fact that he won it and just shoved it in all of these NBA teams' face that way overthought this. This is indeed the Ficini infection game. We're going to see how this goes. I don't think we're going to go much longer than an hour here. We will try very hard, though, to keep you guys entertained. Adam, you are in, I believe, the basement of your grandparents' house right now. How are you doing?
I am doing great, Sam. It's good to be back here. Been a good few weeks since we last connected here live on the show. I'm on, I guess, vacation right now and digging into my old wardrobe. I got the 2017 Santa Cruz Warriors playoff T-shirt here, so we are in the deep cuts this evening, and like the Chicago Bulls in 1999. I have no mic, so hopefully I'm coming through loud and clear, and we're doing all right. But you know what? Summer League was a lot of fun. We watched a lot of basketball. Sad I wasn't able to make it out to Vegas, but caught almost every game. Feel really good about what we saw. I think this is going to be an overwhelmingly positive, like really, really happy podcast to be able to talk about some of these rookies.
I think that's right. And we'll kind of touch on that a little bit later. I want to start with something Dan Le Batard said earlier today. He was comparing and contrasting the idea of what the package is that teams can present to the Portland Trailblazers for Damian Lillard. And I think that at the end of the day, we should probably be starting every episode of this podcast with at least an update on the Damian Lillard sweepstakes, if only because Damian Lillard is the most momentous trade chip out on the market, and he's valuable, and he's by far the biggest story in the NBA right now. Dan Le Batard basically was trying to compare and contrast the best player that you could get in a deal for Damian Lillard right now, seemingly. And he said basically that Tyler Herro is better than Tyrese Maxey. He's just whiter than Tyrese Maxey. And I found it interesting. I don't really care about like the racial aspect of it. I care a lot more about trying to compare and contrast these two as value propositions in terms of their trade value. And I think what I've come to is I do think it's a bad take to just like purely say Tyler Herro is a better asset than Tyrese Maxey. I'm willing to listen to an argument that Tyler Herro is a better player than Tyrese Maxey. I don't think I agree necessarily. I would rather have Maxey, but I'll at least hear out an argument and maybe I'll play devil's advocate if you particularly feel strongly about Maxey. But the big key is like contract status here. And I think people are kind of missing the boat on that. So like if you were a team looking to trade Damian Lillard, let's say, and the best that you can do is get one of Tyler Herro or Tyrese Maxey, which player would you prefer to have?
I would probably go with Maxey.
Why?
A little bit more faith in his speed and a little bit more faith in the tape that I saw pre-draft of Maxey, where he at least showed that he could defend at the point of attack in some regard. It hasn't held up since he's gotten to the NBA in a lot of different ways, but I'm still clinging on to that feeling that I've seen his his competitiveness, the hardwired nature of his on-ball defense, at least have some positive impact before.
I generally agree. I think the defense is a real differentiator. I don't think Maxey quite gets attacked as much as Tyler Herro does. Tyler Herro like ends up being something of a magnet
All the time. Yeah.
I do think that there is like a small chance that Herro just being bigger, like he's like in the 6'5" to 6'6" range. As he gets older, he's a high IQ player. I think there is a chance that you could make a case Herro has a little bit more upside just due to the size in playoff settings defensively than what Maxey does. But Maxey's a better defender right now, like unequivocally. If I was crafting a case, I would rather have Tyrese Maxey. I want to be very clear about this. Like in general, as a player, I would rather have Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey's a drastically better catch and shoot player. You look at his numbers last year. I think he shot like an absurd, like 47% on catch and shoot threes, just like something crazy. I think Maxey fits a little bit better as an off-ball player in general. Like his ability to use his speed to play out in transition and attack at a high level is really valuable. His ability to play off the ball and play decisively without having to dance. Like if someone closes out on him heavy because he is like a 47% catch and shoot 3-point shooter, he's able to use that speed and get into the paint and use that floater game, use that ability to potentially finish at the rim at a fairly high level. Defensively, I think he's a little bit better as well. If I was going to craft a case for Herro, I think it'd be more based around the fact that I do think Herro's a better passer than Maxey is. I don't love Maxey's playmaking ability. I think he is generally somebody that I feel a lot better playing off the ball and just like having him like read and react to what's happening around him, as opposed to Herro, who like I feel okay in ball screens with Tyler Herro in general. I feel better in dribble handoffs with Tyler Herro, with him like making decisions off of those at a fairly high level. Tyler Herro, I think, averaged like 4.5, 5 assists per game last year, something like that. Something in the ballpark there. Also has a bigger role than Maxey, plays on the ball a little bit more than what Tyrese does, playing next to James Harden, playing next to Joel Embiid. I do think in a lot of ways they're like both in perfect situations to accentuate what makes them good at the end of the day. Maxey being able to play off the ball, playing next to James Harden and Joel Embiid is really valuable. Herro having a little bit more on-ball ability for a team that needs that on-ball ability because they really only had Jimmy Butler to be able to create in those circumstances. I think they both get accentuated at a high level. Here's the big difference for me in terms of this. Tyrese Maxey has one more very cheap year left. Tyler Herro does not. Like Tyrese Maxey has a season on his contract that is 1 year. I'm pulling it up as we talk. $4.3 million. Tyler Herro's on his 4-year, $120 million extension. Tyrese Maxey has not yet signed his extension. All that you hear when you talk to NBA teams is how frustrated they are with these deals like Jordan Poole's, like Tyler Herro's, that are not good team-friendly deals. Like the best case scenario is that they're properly paid if they take another step and a half in terms of their games at $30 million. The worst case scenario is they're overpaid probably by like 12 million, something in that ballpark. Maybe Jordan Poole, like overpaid by more than that, but Tyler Herro probably by like maybe 12 million, 10 million, something like that. And I think Tyler Herro is better than Jordan Poole in general, but like my point here is that there are real outcomes along the probability scale that Tyler Herro gets something like 4.105, 4.110, something in that ballpark. And on top of it, as you extend that further out, that window of the years that contract, that second deal actually lives within, the salary cap is going to be rising within those years. So he's actually going to be an even lesser percentage of the cap than what Tyler Herro is going to be in those years. Maybe Maxey does get 4,120, but even so, it's still a better contract for Tyrese Maxey at 4,120 if you think they are equal players, because his fourth year is in a year where the salary cap will be bigger and he thus will take on a smaller percentage of the cap than what Tyler Herro does. So to me, A, I would just rather have Tyrese Maxey as a player. B, I think Tyrese Maxey is a more valuable asset by like a pretty real amount as a player. Do you kind of fall in line with that?
Yeah, I do. I think the percentage of the cap is a really important part of how you look at contracts. It's not just the raw number of how much a guy is getting paid per year. It's how much does it hamstring the rest of your team in order to go out and get other good players. So, 120 million over 4 years now looks a lot different than it will for the next 4 years. With Maxey and Herro for that matter. Like I really like what you said earlier, that it really depends on the context of the team that they're going to be playing on or the role that they're going to be asked to fulfill. Yeah. I still think that there might be a little bit more untapped potential for a guy like Maxey to play with the ball in his hands, just because he hasn't gotten that fully long leash in Philadelphia. He spends a lot of time deferring to James Harden or trying to feed the ball inside to Joel Embiid at different times. I do think that there's at least a little bit more there that he can show in a little bit higher of a role. But at the end of the day, if you score 20 points a game, your contract is going to get boosted up and up and up. And for these smaller guards, like a lot of times that number is a little bit above probably what they're all worth.
I think that's right. The other thing about Maxey is that I think generally Tyler Herro probably is the best playoff run between the two of them when Herro helped them to the NBA finals, right? In his rookie year. But since then, Herro's just kind of been so-so in the playoffs, obviously missed a substantial portion of the playoffs this year. The last 2 years, Tyrese Maxey's been really good in the playoffs, like really quite good. In 23 games, he has averaged 20.7 points while shooting 46, 39, 93 in the playoffs with a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. Like, I think that Maxey is just like a better bet at this point than Herro is, frankly. I get why people want to compare these guys because theoretically they could be the main centerpiece. Here's the other thing I want to talk about, and I'm very glad that Lasiri brought this up because this was my final point here in terms of what I wanted to finish on. Lasiri in the YouTube comments brings up, I just don't get why people want to keep talking about Maxey Herro to Portland when they already have that player in Simons. I agree. I don't totally know why. I get why, because these are potentially the two best players that Portland could theoretically end up with in such a deal. Portland also already has Scoot Henderson in addition to this, and they already have Shaedon Sharpe in addition to this. Shaedon's a little bit bigger. You could imagine him playing the three pretty easily, I think. But they have Simons and Scoot, and that's like two smaller guards that, frankly, like I don't know if I want to play them both together, but you could certainly do it, and it'd be fine. If I'm trying to like build an ideal roster, I don't know if I want to play them together. But end of the day, it's hard to build an ideal roster in the NBA. Everybody is competing against one another, and if you're playing Simons and Scoot together, you're going to be fine. Yeah, I don't. If I'm Portland, I'm like trying to move both these guys to a third team. I think at the end of the day,
yeah.
If this is the best asset that you can get, I'd be trying to move both these guys to a third team.
Yeah, I mean, Sam, a month ago, a little over a month ago, you and I sat here on the podcast right after the Denver Nuggets won the NBA championship and talked about how smart of a roster build they are, and they don't have a guy under 6'5". Like you can't collect a roster, even if they're individually talented guys. It's really hard to win with multiple smaller players on your team. So I think that's a really good point about what Portland is building. We wouldn't take any of these guys over Scoot Henderson long term. And I think trying to project, the differences between them and Simons or their ability to coexist next to Scoot, it's just too many smaller guys in one spot.
Woosh asks, if Cat were on the table, is he better than the other options? I would not want to trade for Karl Anthony Towns' contract if I am Portland. Just point blank, I would not have interest in that. And then people are bringing up Simon's advanced numbers in general. What I'll say is this. I don't love Anthony Simons defensively. I don't think he's great. He has not played in like anything resembling a solid defensive infrastructure the last 2 years. And I would be intrigued at the very least to see what he looks like in a better infrastructure defensively, I think. And I also wouldn't take his like defensive, like, EPM numbers as gospel, given the fact that Portland's defensive situation and given how many games he has played where they've been like kind of out of the picture a little bit. I wouldn't take like the advanced defensive numbers as gospel on most of these guys, frankly, but particularly Portland because they've been in kind of a funky situation the last couple of years.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. So to close the loop on this, if I was Portland, I'd be handling this exactly the same way that Joe Cronin and company are. I get the impression that like Miami media people, LeBatard included, who I am an enormous fan of Dan LeBatard. I think he's great. I just think that, Miami media people need to kind of get in here for the long haul and understand that this might take some time and that there probably need to, more than anything, he said there's not calls going back and forth between Miami and Portland. What Miami needs to do is find a third team more than anything. Like, I get it that there's not calls going back and forth between Miami and Portland. There need to be calls going back and forth between Miami and like somebody else that has real value across the league for what would be a rebuilding team moving forward in Portland. That's where I get a little bit confused about it all, I think.
Yeah. I mean, what's Portland going to do? They don't want any of the guys that Miami could offer straight up. If they did, they would have taken that deal already. So, like, hey, Pat, go call somebody else, man.
Yep. Okay. Let's get into the rookies. All right. In general, I agree with what Adam said at the top of this show. I think the rookies were great at Summer League. Not just good. I thought they were outstanding. You look back through like historical context of like what rookies did numbers wise at Summer League. This rookie class has been phenomenal, in my opinion. I think they did an absolutely great job kind of across the board. Even guys like Brandon Miller, where there are concerns and justifiable concerns, I think there's very real reason to have real optimism moving forward about their situation. So as we talk about this, I do want to keep that at the forefront of the conversation. I think this rookie class in general has been awesome. What Brian Roby says in the YouTube comments, this class is just as deep as we were told. Hey, yeah, Adam, you and I, we told people this is a good class. We agree. Yeah, it's awesome. It's a really, really good rookie class, and I couldn't be more excited to talk about it. Let's talk about the guy that people were like disappointed with for 48 hours in Victor Wembanyama. The way we're going to go through this, by the way, we're just going to talk about these guys in the order they were drafted. And if a team had multiple picks, for instance, like we're going to get to Houston at number 4, we will then include Cam Whitmore, at the top with Amin Thompson in order just to keep teams together so people can kind of, not have to zoom in and out of the show. Once you get to your team, you're going to be able to talk about your team, basically.
Sure.
So, okay. Let's start with Victor Wembanyama. Victor Wembanyama went 2 for 13 in his first game, and people melted down. He then had 27 and 12 in his second game and like almost carried the Spurs back with like a 10-point fourth quarter. And it was absolutely ridiculous. It was fantastic to watch him. I was in person for both games. I said this on the Athletic NBA show. I'll say it again. I thought that Vic was more tentative than I've ever really seen him. I've probably watched, 50 games of Victor Wembanyama plus at this point. Genuinely, I think the number might be more. I've never seen him come out in a game more tentative than what he was in that first game. And even in the second game, I thought he was similarly passive. And then right around the 5-minute mark of the first quarter, he got a wide open mid-range jumper and he swished it. And it felt like that burden, like on his shoulders, kind of fell off completely and he could just go out and play. And then in the next 21 minutes, he went out and dropped like 25 points and was ridiculous. What were your overall impressions of Victor Wembanyama's 2 games in Las Vegas?
So the overwhelming takeaways for me were watching that second game that he was playing in, which I believe was that one was against Portland, if I'm correct. The massive comeback that San Antonio mounted fully because of his presence defensively. Like, he's going to be a very, very special defender. We can nitpick the shooting numbers or how consistently he's knocking down shots from 3 right now all we want. The defensive impact that Victor Wembanyama is going to have early on in his career is going to be pretty high, but the ceiling is through the roof with that guy, just as we all predicted. Like, he is going to be a massive defender at the NBA level. And the second thing for me is Summer League, you rarely see people draw extra attention from scouting reports and game plans, to be double teamed preemptively, to have teams shadow and shade all the way to them when they catch the ball in the mid post area.
Yep.
It is an ultimate sign of respect that everyone else is kind of catering to what you could do your first and second game ever in Summer League. And Victor Wembanyama received that type of attention. Like, he didn't play perfect basketball, and that first game was not the best showing of him that we could have seen. But my God, are all of the signs of how everyone else that he shares a floor with treating him, those signs scream superstar.
Completely agree. I thought he was absolutely phenomenal in the second game, particularly. Here's the thing in the first game. He went 2 for 13. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you Victor Wembanyama played well. He didn't play well. In that first game, do you know how many points per possession the Charlotte Hornets had?
Oh, probably like 0.6.
Yeah, 0.67.
Yeah.
That was the lowest point per possession number of any game at Summer League this year. Any game at Summer League, Sacramento, Utah included, any game that has occurred in Las Vegas, that was the best defensive performance from any single team at that event. Hey, might have something to do with the guy that's 7'5" with an 8-foot wingspan standing in the middle. They just like didn't even try and attack him. Like, truly, they had no desire to try and go in there on him. And it was ridiculous. Like, he blocked 5 shots. The Hornets made 43.3% of their attempts within 6 feet of the basket in that game. And that includes transition opportunities. Like, he was insane defensively in that game. Like, truly ridiculous. Completely changed the geometry of the court. And look, we can talk about how bad the Hornets are. We're going to talk about how bad the Hornets Summer League team was in the next section. But that was a ridiculous performance, like a truly ridiculous defensive performance. And I think he probably did not get enough credit for the defense in the first game. The second game, I mean, look, like, was totally ridiculous. Like, you know, made a 3, made a couple mid-range jumpers, like, lived at the foul line. Like, Portland could not stay in front of him, could not stand in like proper guarding position, essentially. Like, it was absurd trying to like deal with him. Ibu Baji, hot take, cannot guard Victor Wembanyama. I don't know if you knew that, Adam. It was an awesome offensive performance. And I'll tell you this, man, like, being in that crowd, I don't know if it's like the novelty of having not seen somebody that is like this before, or just like the hype train, people like you and I having talked about Vic for as long as we have now, going back and forth, breaking down, you know, basketball in the way that we have with Victor Wembanyama throughout the draft cycle. But man, people are excited to see this dude. Like, the vibe in the arena was different for him. Like, I was there for Lonzo. I was there for LaMelo. Or not for LaMelo. LaMelo didn't do summer league. I was there for Lonzo. I was there for Zion. I was there for who else are the big ones? I'm trying to think. There are a few other like bigger debuts that we saw. Basically, anytime the Lakers had a high draft pick, like, I was there, and it was a big deal because people come in from LA to Vegas in the arena. Like, you can feel the energy. You could feel it with the Spurs, like, at Summer League because of Vic. People want to see this dude. They want this dude to succeed. It's going to be really interesting to see, like, what the Spurs road game attendance looks like. I would bet it might be a little bit higher. Like, it's going to be really interesting to see what the Spurs attendance looks like this year. I bet it's drastically higher. Like, there is a real buzz among like fans around Vic that people like truly care about this dude and like truly want to see him succeed.
Yeah, and he's just laughable to watch. Like, there's one play every game that's just laughable. I've never seen anything like this before. How do you stop it? Like, it's he's comical in some regard. The tips to himself for offensive rebounds always make me chuckle. Like, what are you supposed to do with somebody that gargantuan? And to top it off, like, he was really consistent in both games. Like, defensively, he had a great first performance and shut down the Charlotte Hornets. And then the second game, like, he came out and oops, he did it again. Like, he was great the entire time in Summer League.
Yeah. I thought he was really quite good. Do you want to take a minute here and talk about your guy CD? Because I thought CD Sissoko was pretty interesting.
Yeah, super interesting. I mean, look, the shot, he's lost some confidence in that regard. I thought that he would have built up and developed a little bit more by this point and feel more comfortable. But when the ball's in his hands, particularly in transition, he just makes fun things happen. He's such a smart basketball player, but he is fearless. He is willing to drive his way head down through contact and get to the bucket. He makes smart decisions for others. And that guy is as competitive on the defensive end as we were hoping for. Like, it is going to take maybe a little bit more time in the G League for him to tighten some of those jump shot mechanics and find a way to really have an off-ball role in the NBA. But he is a real dude. He is a real dude.
Look, the shooting is going to determine to me whether or not he's a real dude or not. But defensively, there is a lot there. Like, in person, you can really see, like, he is big. He is very quick defensively. Like, it's all there. You can see the tools in a big way. I would imagine he'll spend most of his year in the G League this year, like, just straight up. I think that's the right call. He needs to develop the confidence in the jumper. They need to do so much work on that thing. It looks different every time at this point coming out of his hand. The trajectory is different. The release point's different. Like, he needs a lot of time in the G League, I think, to get that thing going. But there's enough there to where I feel like this has a chance to be a hit for them in the second round, for sure.
Love that, Sam. I love that for you.
Okay. Let's go to the Hornets. Brandin Miller, the number 2 overall pick. I want to start it here. Brandin Miller had to play on what is, in my opinion, one of the worst summer league rosters I've seen. You have to remember that a lot of these guys for the Hornets are very young, like first and second year players after coming off of one and done years, right? Nick Smith was playing a lot of point guard. If you take away like the 33-point like outburst he had, which I believe was also against Portland, I saw that game live and I was just sitting there next to a good friend of the program and just like cackling, watching Nick Smith like go off. If you take away that 33-point game where you just had like the crazy second half, Nick Smith averaged 9 points and 3 assists while shooting 27% from the field. You don't want to take away like the big flash moment, but it was not great for Nick Smith having to play point. Amari Bailey averaged 8 points, shot 40% from the field, and had a 1-to-3 assist to turnover ratio. James Bouknight was out there shooting. He was out there just going for it. Kai Jones doesn't really look like an NBA player to me, if I'm being completely honest. But you have all these guys that are first round picks that you have real investment in, and you're like trying to figure out who they are. You're trying to figure out what you have in them. And frankly, you're probably empowering them on some level to take shots. For the Hornets to build this roster the way they did, I thought was egregiously bad. They brought in only one veteran, like real pass first point guard. It was Justin Robinson, former Virginia Tech point guard, definitely like a pass first guy. The problem is Justin Robinson tore his meniscus in, I believe, October of last year, like a pretty bad one in the NBL. And I believe has not really played competitive like basketball since then. Like he didn't return like at any point during the season in the NBL. So you're looking at a situation where your veteran point guard is like getting the cobwebs out and like getting the rust off a little bit early on. You really needed to have another body there. They also brought in Kobe Simmons. Look, Kobe Simmons played really well in that last game of theirs, and he had like 8 assists, maybe like 1 or 2 turnovers. I thought he played quite well. Kobe Simmons' like inclination is not to be like a pass first guy. Like in the other 2 games he played, he had 3 assists total, right? So there was never a point here where I felt like the Hornets, with the personnel they had on the court, were ever going to get guys like Brandin Miller or Nick Smith or whoever easy shots. Nick Smith was playing point. Nick Smith is not a point guard. Brandin Miller had to create everything. And there's one thing I want to talk about a little bit later that is concerning there, but Brandin Miller had to create everything. There was just never any organization with this team. They had under 1 point per possession in all of their first 6 games at Summer League, which is horrendous. Their last game was the only one they got over 1 point per possession. And it was the game where like all of Brandin Miller, Nick Smith, Kai Jones, I think Bouknight sat. Like it was a game where all their guys who don't pass sat. And you know what happened? They ended up with 34 assists on 39 buckets in that game. There was just never any organization. I put it on the front office. I kind of put it on the coaching staff. Like it was horrendous basketball watching the Charlotte Hornets. And that's why I don't want to overreact to what we saw from Brandin Miller in any way, shape, or form. This was one of the worst built rosters you could build to accentuate Brandin Miller's gifts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton to add for that. I think Summer League in general, with short practice time, with guys going out there and trying to prove things for themselves, it doesn't lend well to guys who pop in systems or schemes. It doesn't lend well to guys who always make the right basketball play, and sometimes the ball doesn't get returned to them in different forms or fashions. You know, Brandin Miller, for the playmaking that he had to endure, still had a positive assist to turnover ratio, and just didn't get enough easy baskets created for him, which I think made the flaws of his game and the areas where he might struggle to get easy looks for himself really just had a brighter spotlight on that than it should have. And that comes in some regard to roster construction and the guards that were on this Charlotte Hornets roster. It reminded me a lot of watching the Houston Rockets this past year with Jabari Smith, a guy who was just begging for some guards to understand how to get him the basketball in an area where his 3-point shooting would really pop. And they didn't run a lot of sets for him there, and he was just waiting for Jalen Green or Kevin Porter Jr. to figure that out.
Yep.
That's what this Summer League experience for Brandin Miller felt like in some regard, that when he had the ball in his hands, he showed some good things. He showed some not so great things, but he didn't get enough involvement off ball because no one else really knew or figured out or prioritized how to put him in a position to succeed.
I think that's right. The other thing I want to talk about is just generally like this archetype of player, like the Brandon Miller big wing archetype. These guys tend not to play well in their first summer league. Statistically, if you look back, Brandon Ingram averaged 12 points and shot 41% from the field in his first summer league. Paul George averaged 15 points and shot 33% from the field in his first summer league. Andrew Wiggins averaged 15 points, shot 40%. Jaylen Brown averaged 16 points, shot 32%. Like, you can go back through history and you can see that these guys, they just tend not to like pop in this environment. Brandon Miller needs to get stronger. The thing he needs to do more than anything is move without the ball. He does not move without the ball. And it's been a problem since he was at Alabama. I wrote about it in the draft guide. Does not move without the ball. And in 5 games that he played at Summer League, if I remember correctly, I think he played 5. Had 0 shots or turnovers off of cuts. At Alabama, I think all year he had like 9. It was ridiculous. Like, the guy does not move without the ball nearly enough. A lot of his like off-screen actions are off of like little mini flare actions. Yeah. It tends to be. Has to improve moving without the basketball. Again, like, this Hornets situation's a fucking train wreck, and you don't want to like, put too much on that. But we saw it last year as well at Alabama that he's not really all that active, like coming off of screens, running around. And to get the most out of his skill set as a shooter, as a big wing, I would like to see him move a little bit more.
I think that's a very fair critique. And again, it goes back to, you don't have a ton of time to get everything installed system-wise for Summer League, but you can't just roll the ball out there and let things fall where they may. Not when you have a really important piece like Brandon Miller that you need to see positive progression from.
Yeah, like the team that did the best job of this, and look, I always talk about how good of a job I think the Memphis Grizzlies do, but like the Memphis Grizzlies did a fucking phenomenal job. They brought in both Jacob Gilyard and Frankie Ferrari. Do you know what Jacob Gilyard and Frankie Ferrari do? They pass the shit out of the ball. They run ball screens perfectly. Like, they do a great, great job of getting everybody involved in the flow of the offense. You know what the Kings did? Another, by the way, smart front office, the Sacramento Kings. We haven't been able to say that often, but I want to say it now. They're smart front office. They bring in Jordan Ford. Jordan Ford, awesome playmaker, unselfish, willing to shoot when he has to, but like just a good small guard that gets everybody in motion, everybody in flow. If you have to give one of these guys an exhibit 10 and give them 70 grand to go play, do it. Please. You're going to get rewarded in every way, shape, and form by doing this. If you have a high draft pick that you want to see like in real competent offensive sets. The Hornets particularly, but anybody, like the Hornets were the example this year. I would implore teams like really go out and find those veteran guards who play unselfishly and give your guys a real chance. Real quick, let's finish on the Hornets. They have 3 other draft picks. Nick Smith, I thought the explosion against the Blazers was amazing. Like, that was phenomenal. Some of the moves he showcased, some of the twitchiness, some of the like overall flexibility I thought he showed to create separation was really impressive. But the process is still really bad. And you saw it in the other 3 games where, again, he averaged, 9 points and shot something in the 30s. I think even 27% or something like that from the field. Like, it was quite bad. The process for Nick Smith is very hard. And he's just going to have to be one of those guys that makes tough shots. And that's why he went later, I think.
Yeah. The tantalizing upside you see for one half of a game, it doesn't overshadow what you have to go through in order to get there, which is living with all the other painful quarters where he's still trying to feel his way through things.
What did you think of James Najee?
Solid flashes on defense, rebounded pretty well. He's, you can tell he's played in experienced, meaningful games with other pros before. I think that was one of the takeaways that I had from watching him play for Charlotte. Like, he knew where to be, seemed to be decent with how he communicated and quarterbacked the defense in some regard. But again, when you're a screen and roll big and you're playing with guards who aren't proficient passers, your offense is just really going to stagnate.
Yeah, agree. And then finally, Amari Bailey.
Not very impressed.
I really actually quite liked him in the first stop of their summer league, which I think was in Sacramento, if I remember correctly. I did not like what I saw in Las Vegas. I thought he was quite poor.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to dive into the rest. Okay, we're back. Let's talk Scoot Henderson and the Portland Trail Blazers. The thing I want to call out with Scoot, because I've seen a lot of very strong takes, and look, I'm going to be like overwhelmingly positive about Scoot as well, because look, it's one of those deals when you see it, you know it. Like, truly. The way that he dictated the tempo of the game is like expert level veteran guard kind of stuff, except he's also a brick shit house that has like an immense first step and like can keep anybody on his back at all times. Like, there's a play where Nate Hinton like played denial, and like Nate Hinton is like big. He's like 6'5", 215, 220 pounds, wing, physical, strong. Like, he's not in the NBA because not because of his defense. Like, Nate Hinton is a good defender at every level he's ever played. And Scoot Henderson gets denied. They inbound the ball to Rupert. Scoot just goes after the denial, catches the ball. Hinton's trying to recover, trying to get around him, using his length, using his like size to try and get around him. And Scoot just keeps him in jail. But the whole time he keeps him in jail, he's actually covering forward ground. Like, it's not like I'm just like keeping this guy in jail and not moving forward. I'm keeping this guy in jail while still being able to like cover ground and cover court and take up space and get into the paint. And then eventually he just takes this like enormous long stride extended forward and gets all the way to the rim and makes this like inside hand finish. And it's just like, this is shit where like there are NBA guards who can't do that. Like Darius Garland, like I love him. He's just not like big enough to do that against guys like that. Right. Like Darius Garland's incredible, and Darius Garland is a better shooter. He's better, you know, at a number of things than Scoot Henderson is. And there are certain things that you see with Scoot where it's like, oh, like there are like 5 guards in the league that could do that. Like truly, they're like that is like Anthony Edwards type shit right there that we're watching. Except, oh wait, Scoot threw 2 of the most absurd, like offhand, left-hand cross corner kickouts, like while he was up in the air that I've seen at Summer League, like in the last 5 years that I've been watching it or whatever, last 8 years. Like, it's the feel for the game. It's the creativity. It's all of it kind of mixed together with him while also being so strong, while having that explosive first step, while also just understanding how to play at tempo. Like, this dude is a star. Like, I think straight up he is a star, and everything we saw in his 21 minutes before he hurt his shoulder, I think said otherwise, or said the same exact thing we've been saying throughout the process.
Yeah, the it factor is really what it comes down to with Scoot Henderson. Like, he's got it, and we talked about this throughout the draft cycle after watching the Ignite versus Metropolitans game early in the season. He had that intuitive feel for how and when to try to take over a game. And I think beyond that, like, that's what great players have, but they also have a feel for like the narrative in some regard. And like, this felt like Scoot Henderson coming out with a fuck you game. It just felt that way in Summer League, that he
Yeah.
knew he was going to come out and just prove everybody that didn't think he was the second best player or even the best player in this draft wrong and come out and just completely take over and own that game. And he looked so damn good for those minutes that he was out there for Portland. That was, to me, that was the highlight of the game, of any game that we saw this summer, was that opening contest between the Blazers and the Rockets. That was so much fun.
Oh, it was by far the best game at Summer League. It was so funny. Like, that was the best game at Summer League, and then the Spurs Hornets game was the worst game at Summer League. Like, we got them both back to back. It was so funny to like see the way that like the energy drained from the crowd by the middle of the second quarter, even after we just watched Jabari Smith drain like a 30-footer to win that Rockets Blazers game. It was pretty funny. The other thing about Scoot that I kind of just want to note before maybe we move on, there's probably a little bit more to talk about than that. Like, he did this against undeniably the most athletic team at Summer League, and like the best team at Summer League, frankly, in Houston, right? With all of their dudes. Like, he got switched on to Tyrese multiple times and he was good. Like, it didn't matter. It was fine. Tyrese 6'8", 7'2" wingspan, enormous hands. Like, he's good. It's all good with him. Jabari Smith is big, 6'10", 7'1" wingspan. Didn't matter. Jay Huff won the Defensive Player of the Year in the G League last year. Like, Jay Huff's like actually a good defender. Didn't matter. Cam Whitmore led Summer League in steals. I think he averaged like 3.5 per game. Didn't matter. Like, Amen Thompson was his primary point of attack defender. 6'7", 7-foot wingspan. One of the most electric athletes you'll ever watch play basketball. Scoot got wherever he wanted. Like, that is a more athletic team that he will face mostly on a day-to-day basis in the NBA. And it was just good. He was all good. He's truly all good. And I don't know, man. Like, I'm in, like, totally. I was in before this, but like those 21 minutes, it was just like, oh yeah, like this is going to be great. The 6 assists were the ridiculous number to me. Like, he played 21 minutes and I think was responsible per synergy for like 33 points created in the game. Jabari Smith like scored like 37 points and played 31 minutes. Like, no other player was responsible for more offense than Scoot Henderson was in that game, despite the fact that Scoot only played like 20 minutes. It was absurd. It was completely ridiculous. He was absolutely incredible, unbelievable. And I couldn't be more excited to watch him play more this year.
Love Scoot, man. It's just, I wish we got a little bit more from him, but I'll be honest, like, even if he didn't get his shoulder banged up a little bit, I had a feeling he would have been shut down pretty shortly after that. Like, he doesn't belong on a Summer League court.
I think it would have been 2 games. Would have been the same as Vic. Honestly, like, I think the impression I got was like probably could have played, but they just kind of were like, we've seen enough. We've seen enough in 20 minutes. Okay. Let's go to, I guess let's finish on the Blazers real quick. Chris Murray looked fine. Looked like a guy that will be able to step into a rotation off the bench this year and will be good.
Yeah, and then Rayon Rupert like had a couple of moments of defensive and real activity that he showed. I thought his hustle was really the standout thing for me in watching him play. But like, he's going to be farther away offensively. It is what it is. Yeah,
he's a multi-year project defensively. Is where I'm at. Like, truly it will take a couple of years, I think, for him to figure it out. Defensively, he'll be able to play, but I don't think he'll actually be able to get on the court because the offense is a bit rough. Okay. Next up, the team that Portland played in that Scoot game, the Houston Rockets. The Houston Rockets were the best team I saw at Summer League, point blank. I've talked a lot on the previous podcast that I'm like sick. Like, did I do that with you? Did I do it with somebody else? I don't remember.
I don't remember either. Yeah.
We talked about, on the last episode of the show, we talked about Jabari and Tari. I think there's a real case that those were probably outside of like Scoot and Vic and like, whatever you want to call them. I thought Jabari and Tari were the 2 best players I saw at Summer League. along with Chet. I would say Jabari, Tari, and Chet were probably the three that I saw. And I was just like, these guys belong nowhere near this court. They are way too good. Let's just move on. And like with Jabari, you want to get him the reps. You want to get him going as much as you can, right? Like I get it. But with Jabari and Tari, I thought they were phenomenal. But I've talked about them already. Let's talk about Amen Thompson to start. Amen only played one game, very similarly to Scoot Henderson, rolled his ankle and ended up sitting out the rest of the summer league. I thought he was great.
Yeah.
The athleticism is outrageous. The two plays that stood out for me with him were he had these two just ridiculous first step drives where he just completely blew by everybody, used that like enormous length extension to be able to get there and took like an inside hand left-handed finish. It was absurd. Brian K brings up J-Dub was the best player at Summer League. Yeah, he played like one game in Utah, if I remember correctly. And it was just like he had 20 points at halftime. And it was like, why the fuck is this guy playing?
Yeah.
Agree. Jalen Williams was phenomenal. But Jabari Smith, I think, or Amen Thompson, I think was quite good. We saw the passing flashes. He had a couple, especially. He got really comfortable, I thought, in the third quarter before he got hurt and really started to show some of the passing flashes that we all expected to see. Everything I saw from Amen Thompson was what I'd hoped to see, and I am excited to watch more.
100%. He had an intriguing floater that he was able to get to in the mid-range area too, which I want to make sure we note a little bit because that was a
Big
critique.
Call.
That was a critique that you and I kind of had of his game in the pre-draft process. There wasn't much in between, that he either plays 100 miles an hour towards the rim and it's breathtakingly fast, or he's kind of dribbling around being a little bit slower. He has to get to a pull-up jumper. To have that runner or just that in-between game that he flashed, even in the smallest of ways, I think was really encouraging.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that runner. I was like actually kind of surprised when he made that. Like, yeah. I was like, wait, you can do that now? And he can. And the fact that he can do it now is huge. Brian Roby brings up the block from a standstill on a driving Shaedon Sharpe. It's just like the stuff him and Ausar can do athletically. And we'll talk about Ausar next, but like the level they are at athletically is obscene. It is completely absurd.
They're nuts. They are absolutely nuts. And look, it was one game of Amen. Like I thought he looked really, really strong. Was glad to see him get those reps in there. There were so many guys on that Houston Rockets team that it did feel like a positive for everybody that they kind of cycled through different guys and like progressively shut people down so that you could see more and more and more from everybody else. They still have so many young bodies, but it didn't matter what game it was or which players were on the court. I thought the Rockets had a real consistent defensive identity and were really pressuring and using their athleticism for the best. Loved to see that here in Summer League. Like if there's one long-term positive takeaway from what we have with the Houston Rockets, yeah, you can pinpoint individuals and how they played and how they fared and be really thrilled with it. But collectively, how all of these athletic pieces are going to fit under Ime Udoka and what their coaching staff has in mind. Like this is going to be a fun, pressuring, aggressive team that probably develops a defensive identity rather quickly.
Just the guy that stands out most in regard to like the scheme and just like their overall competence at Summer League, maybe is the way to put it, is Matthew Mayer. Like Matthew Mayer in 3 games has dropped 14 and 7. He's shooting 38% from 3 on like 7 3-point attempts per game. I guess like you would kind of expect Matthew Mayer to be successful in a situation like this. But like if Matthew Mayer's coming in and just cannon threes like it's nobody's business, yeah, we probably got a pretty competent scheme here, and we've got a lot of confident play going on with the Houston Rockets, and they deserve a lot of credit. I think they deserve a ton of credit for, Ben Sullivan did a great job as their coach. Like I think that they ran like really competent stuff. And also like they were so much more athletic than everybody, which is the whole thing of what they've been building. Like they've been building these ridiculously athletic front lines and backcourts and wings and everything. And speaking of ridiculously athletic, Summer League MVP Cam Whitmore. Folks, we're back. The amount of shit that I got from people for ranking Cam Whitmore in the top 5 when he goes 20, I still felt great about it. Because you know why? Like I've talked about, like I've done the intel, like I've done all the research into it. Like I would still have him in the top 5 easy. I have no real concerns because guys like this who are as athletic and powerful and physical as Cam Whitmore is, they tend not to fail when they are this productive as teenagers. Cam Whitmore is 6'7" with like reasonable length. He is about as bouncy and springy and powerful as you will find. He is fine defensively. Like that's always been the thing. I think people were like, oh yeah, this guy like doesn't want to be out there defensively, like doesn't care. No, he's like pretty good defensively. Like he's willing to fight and scratch and claw, especially on the ball. Like Cam Whitmore is good. Period. Would I have voted him MVP? No, I probably look, the best players I saw at Summer League, again, were probably Jabari, Tari, and Chet. If you made me pick a guy that played like a lot of games at Summer League, I think I would have picked Sam Merrill, to be honest, as the MVP. But I don't think it's like an unreasonable selection to have Cam Whitmore if you're looking for somebody that played a bunch of games and was like ridiculously productive. Like Cam Whitmore is absolutely a monster. Like he's truly a monster.
I know, Sam.
Cam Whitmore did not turn 20 or did not. I'm sorry. No, Cam Whitmore did not turn 19 until Summer League started. Look, I've gone through like the list of Summer League MVPs. I can't imagine there's ever been a younger Summer League MVP than Cam Whitmore. I mean, he just turned 19, like literally last week. Everything that I have seen from Cam Whitmore says to me, this guy is going to be really good. Like, look, there are holes here. We're not going to sit here and pretend like he was
right
across the board great. But in 5 games, he's averaged 20.4 points, 5.6 rebounds, 2.4 assists, 3 steals per game. And he started the tournament at fucking 18 years old. This dude's a dude. This is a dude, Cam Whitmore. I don't know. Like, I'll ask you this. How much do you think Cam Whitmore plays this year?
Oh, I think after this performance, they're going to want to carve out at least 8 to 15 minutes a night within that rotation for him. Try to let him be active, be energetic on defense, see if he can create a spark for you. I don't see him really cracking the rotation too much ahead of that, just because they've got enough other competent bodies at those positions. Went out and signed Dylan Brooks. Jabari and Tari are 2 guys that we talked about, just a little bit better and ahead of him in the pecking order right now. I think he's fringe rotation, like a guy who should be getting consistent minutes.
Yeah, like I think he probably could play in the NBA next year. I think it's just going to require like somebody getting hurt in their rotation. Like I would imagine Jae'Sean Tate is probably like a more impactful guy as a bench player next year than Cam Whitmore. But also like there's a chance that Cam Whitmore is just so athletic that it doesn't matter. And you have to play him. You just kind of have to play him. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of similar to Tyrese last year. Like I thought Tyrese like might have a little bit of a runway before he played. But at the end of the day, like motor and athleticism won out, right? I think Cam is probably like a level behind right now. Tari, I guess I would say, just in terms of Tari's a little bit longer. I think he's better defender.
Yes.
His motor is like Tari's motor is just absurd. But Cam's motor was good throughout summer league. Like, it was quite good. He played hard the whole way. The thing with Cam is that he is like a shot maker and scorer more than anything right now.
Sure.
And there were a lot of moments at summer league where it was like missed reversals, did the typical Cam Whitmore thing, which is stop and survey. I'm going to take like the right-handed dribble. I'm going to cross over to the left. I'm going to hezzy in. I'm going to get to the step back and try and shoot the three. Like, there was a lot of that. Like, we're not going to sit here and pretend like he was perfect. He was far from perfect at summer league, but like being able to create shots at the level he was, being able to create pull up threes, being able to create shots at the basket, being able to just drive to the rim and get there even a lot of the time. Yeah, I am. I have seen nothing that makes me jump off of my Cam Whitmore is going to be like a top 5 guy in this draft class take.
Sure. He looked very good because his athleticism pops and he's just that imposing of a player once he gets downhill. Like, does he still have more tunnel vision than Kodak Black? Like, absolutely. He's got to find ways to become a little bit better passer, particularly on the move. Like, once he starts dribbling, you know exactly what he's going to do. And he's
Totally.
he's pretty rigid in his decision making as soon as he gets going. Like, those are things long term that have to improve. But even though we didn't see those improvements this early, it's so nice to know that he's going to be an impactful player regardless, just because he's that damn good of an athlete. Like, it definitely translates.
It 100% translates. I just want to note as well, because I found this a little bit funny. So Cam Whitmore attempted 7 shots per game at summer league at the rim. Brandon Miller in his 5 games, I think, attempted 11 total at the rim in summer league. If you reduce this to half court, Cam Whitmore attempted, I think it was 19, whereas Brandon Miller attempted like 8 or something at the rim. Like, it's just a different deal. And on top of that, like, you know, he shot better at the rim than what Brandon Miller did too. Like, he shot 63% at the rim in half court settings. So yeah, tunnel vision on drives, you know, needs to improve as a passer. Also averaged 2 assists per game this year, or, you know, 2.4. He had 12 assists for the Houston Rockets at summer league after having 19 assists in 26 games for Villanova this year. I think that it was just a bad situation at Villanova. I really do. And I think people way overthought it. And Cam Whitmore's a good basketball player, and I feel good about where I'm at on him.
Yeah, unfortunately, I know this firsthand, but Cam Whitmore, good at basketball.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Okay. Let's go to the Detroit Pistons. So it was interesting to watch the Pistons at Summer League, I think, because I caught their first 2 games in person, and I feel like I did not see the best of them, like, in person. And because of that, like, I wonder if my judgment was like a little bit clouded. And then I watched like the Marcus Sasser 40-point game. And then I watched, you know, Ausar Thompson play really, really well in his last game. Like, I don't know. I'll let you kind of take the floor on Detroit. Like, it's a little bit hard for me to get that like initial first thing out of it with Detroit, I guess. But also, like, I saw the 2 games where Jaden Ivey played, and I did not think Jaden Ivey played particularly well at Summer League. Yeah. So, like, maybe I'm, like, over-indexing that when we're talking about the rookies, and I felt like the rookies were quite good at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree with that. In watching Summer League, I keep thinking about this idea of winning basketball players, right? Guys who make those plays that would translate to what we most recently saw watching the NBA during the postseason. And those who have experience or just that kind of competitive factor, that glue guy type of mentality, I think the Pistons found them in Ausar Thompson and Marcus Sasser. And that's not to say that their ceilings aren't higher than being glue guy type of players, but they just came in and instantly made winning basketball plays with the way that they defended, the way that they rotated, the way that they were able to force their teams to play in transition. I thought that the rest of the Pistons roster, particularly some of the guys that mattered, like I thought Jalen Duren was fine in the games.
I thought he was good.
I
Yeah,
thought he was, yeah.
I thought he did a really good job of like exploring a little bit while also
Yep.
doing what he does well. Uh, yeah, I want to remove Jalen Duren
Yeah.
from that part of it. I thought Wiseman was terrible on defense still, like, and he's a fourth year player playing summer league and still just like cannot defend at all. I thought Ivy was not very good, unfortunately. Obviously, Cade didn't play, but like, really, it was Ivy and Wiseman that I think maybe left a bad taste in my mouth a little bit more than what I wanted. And this comes as someone that like I love Jaden Ivey, and I think that he's like an awesome fit next to Cade. I just didn't think he played super well at summer league in those 2 games that I saw.
Sure. Yeah, and I was really encouraged with the defensive communication that Duren brought to the table, like smaller things and winning habits that are going to help the Detroit Pistons long term. It's just they don't pay those immediate dividends in the summer league. So I think what they needed to get out of this, they kind of got out of it with some of those guys. I agree. Like Ivy wasn't terrific in that regard. I would have liked to seen one more shooter really step up for them, but I'm fine with how Detroit summer went.
Well, and I want to focus a little bit more on Ausar because I thought that he really particularly blossomed once Ivy left the lineup a little bit. He got more on ball reps. We got to see him a little bit more as a driver. We got to see him a little bit more as like a transition driver, particularly like being able to create those opportunities and build those like in a more substantial way. I thought he was outstanding throughout the course of their last couple of games, particularly that he played. I still don't buy the shot. Like I know that people think he's like the Thompson that can shoot. I don't think he can shoot genuinely, but I don't think it matters because he did literally every single thing else on the court that you want. He is a great rebounder. He can grab and go on the break and start the break. He is a phenomenal defender. His rotations from the weak side to protect the rim, those have translated already. Like he is ridiculous with those from day one in the NBA. Really active and energetic defensively as a wing defender. The guy that I always comped him to was Andre Iguodala, and that's exactly what he looked like at Summer League. And I mean that in the most complimentary, best possible way. Like Andre Iguodala is, a borderline Hall of Famer. Like I don't know that he'll make it, but it's going to be close. If I'm comparing you to that guy, I mean that as an absolute compliment.
Yeah, I love what we saw from Ausar. Again, the athleticism is what stands out most. But you mentioned an Andre Iguodala type of role. Like those guys blossom when they play next to other smart decision makers, ball movers, high IQ basketball players. And I just always feel like summer league is a little bit lower in that regard. There aren't as many of them that you're sharing the floor with. Decisions are made at a step or a half step slower than they are in an NBA game. Ausar looks so much faster and more brilliant in kind of comparison. And that's not a knock on him. Like he's going to be able to translate that to the next level. But I do think his game will pop even more when he's surrounded by a couple more of those guys.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I've seen a couple of Pistons fans say that Ivy's second game was a lot better. I didn't really think so. Just from like a process perspective. Like I know if you look at the numbers, like he had 22 points and I think he had like 8 or 9 or something assists or whatever. I thought that he turned the ball over a ton. He fouled a ton. They got down like 20. I was in attendance for this game. Like they got down like 25 or something like that. Like it was a lot of him like dribbling and pounding the ball into the ground. And again, I say that as someone like I really like Jaden Ivey, and I think that like this is just a blip. Like it's not going to be a big deal at all. He played 2 games at Summer League. Who the fuck cares, right? But like, I did not really enjoy the Jaden Ivey experience at Summer League, frankly.
That's fair. Very fair.
Yeah. I'm trying to think in terms of the Pistons. I mean, Marcus Sasser was outstanding too. Yeah. Like just absolutely everything you could have wanted to see from Sasser as a late second round pick or late first round pick. I'm sorry. was ready to go from day one. Good defensively, knocks down shots. Whereas I thought Jaden Ivey was like over dribbling a bit, even in like that 40-point game for Sasser where he was playing on the ball a lot. It felt like he was more decisive in his moves off the bounce. And because I think his handle got really underrated in the pre-draft process, like his handle is very silky and good. Because of that, I think he's able to just break down guys a little bit quicker. And that leads to him having more success. He's also like a lights out 3-point shooter off the catch, real pull up 3-point shooter if he gets the separation. He's small, like small matters in today's NBA. Like him being 6 foot, 6'1", even with the length that he has, is going to be an issue. But I really think that he's going to be like a good, at the very least, like great backup point guard that has a chance to be a starter, I think for sure.
Yeah. Well, Summer League is not an environment where your lack of size is going to catch up to you. There aren't a lot of teams that are completely 6'5" or bigger or disciplined enough to find ways to play through that. So, I thought Sasser looked really good. He's a good basketball player. No questions in my end about that. But we haven't been able to answer that major question of how does he look when he's the one smaller guy on the court and other teams are trying to go at him.
Yeah, and like, look, Sasser had that big 40-point game against the Pacers, right? But, in the other games at Summer League, he averaged under 10 points per game. And even including that 40-point outburst, he still had a 52 true shooting percentage, right? So small matters. Like small is important when discussing this, but this is as good as it could have been, I think, from Marcus Sasser to start his career. Connor Andrews says, I like his fit with Cade a lot. I agree. Totally. Elite shooter next to Cade, really good defender. The thing with Sasser is I like him next to Cade. I like him next to Jaden Ivey. I like him next to Ausar. I like him next to, Cade and Ausar. I like him next to everything, right? Like, I think it just works kind of. His skill set is so complementary of everybody else on the roster that it could be like kind of hard to keep him off the floor at times, I think.
Good basketball players are always better to have than not.
Always valuable. That's a strong take, Adam.
Thank you.
I agree. They did not have any other rookies that we need to talk about, I don't think, right?
Tosan got a couple minutes here or there. He looked okay. That's it.
Yeah, he looks like maybe a solid E10 guy. Yeah. Okay. Let's now start to those were the big teams that I really wanted to hit. So now we're going to kind of zoom through a little bit more substantially. The Orlando Magic had Anthony Black and Jett Howard. What were your takes on them?
Anthony Black, very good at basketball all around. Super smart processor, just controls the game in every type of way. When he was on the floor, I thought the Orlando Magic looked like probably the most organized team in Summer League, and then it quickly fell apart when he wasn't out there.
So his first game, I was talking to a scout. It was against the Pistons, and that scout said that he thought Anthony Black's second half against the Pistons was the most impressed he was through the first 4 days of Summer League with any player at Summer League. And I think it was probably Scoot for me still. Especially among the guards. And I think like Jabari Smith was probably a little bit better, but I thought Anthony Black's second half against the Pistons was ridiculous. He was everything that you could want to see. He was he was getting into the paint at a super high level. He was processing at a super high level, defending really well. Like he did everything to make life hard for Jaden Ivey. And he did everything to, get his team, in position to have a chance to win that game.
He's a basketball genius. He is.
Yes, truly. In the second game against the Pacers, I felt like you saw more of the flaws, the inefficiency, the lack of desire to shoot from three, just wasn't quite as impactful. And then in the third game, I thought it was kind of a mix against the Knicks where made some high level passes, impacted the game on the glass, did a good job of being active and energetic and hitting the stat sheet, but was still pretty inefficient by and large.
Yeah, and that Indiana game was a rough one because the Pacers kind of blitzed them early a little bit. Like Orlando
Yeah.
just fell apart in different ways, and I think that might be the right time to segue into like Jett Howard stuff a little bit for me. Like I thought he was unconscionably gunning out there this summer league. like that dude has not met a shot he hasn't liked. And yeah, he made a few and he looked impressive when the shot goes in. But from a decision making and a process standpoint, I wasn't really blown away with Jett Howard. It's hard to know how much of that is like an organizational directive of saying like, hey, this is our lottery pick guy. We want him to go out there and just get a bunch of shots up, or versus how much of it is like, yeah, he was just pulling too much out there and forcing some shots. Like I did not love the decision making from Jett.
Yeah, Jett went out there and did a lot. I thought the first game was, look, he went for 22 against the Knicks. I thought the first game from like a process perspective was better than that game for Howard. Like, yeah, he went 3 for 13, but like he made a couple of really high level movement threes. He went 2 for 7 from 3, but more than anything, he had 4 rebounds. He had 4 assists. He had 3 steals. Like the thing with Jett Howard that's going to get him on the court is being active and not just shooting. Like that's how he has to play. He has to be somebody that impacts the game across the spectrum, not just as a shooter. In the game against the Knicks, I thought that he went back to like, old Jett Howard where he was just out there gunning. Yeah. And, I don't think that gets him on the court. Nope. I don't.
And I thought he shot them out of the Pacers game early too. I thought that the decisions he made and the shots that he took just really allowed that game to get out of control quickly.
Yeah. We did not like the Magic draft. I think that, frankly, as much as I love Anthony Black, the problem with Anthony Black on that team continues to be that like he's probably somebody that needs the ball in his hands more often than not. And by putting the ball in his hands, you're taking it out of Paulo and Franz's hands. And those two guys are all-stars. Like by 2025, they're both going to be all-stars, if not this year, right? So I have worries about that fit there as much as I love Anthony Black, the player. And I just have worries on whether or not Jett Howard is like good enough still. Nothing we saw changed that, I guess.
Yeah, I love Anthony Black. I still believe that you draft like big, smart, high IQ, great defenders. Like he's just a winning basketball player and you figure out the fit stuff later. I'd rather have Anthony Black on my team than not.
Okay. Number 7 was Bilal Coulibaly. Bilal started off slow, and then by the time the last game rolled around, like really like was flashing and like popping quite often in their games. What were your takes on Coulibaly?
Well, the defense translates from day one. I mean, he's massive and he's really active.
So big.
He covers ground in a hurry. Like you think you've got room, maybe there's separation across from him or room to shoot a jumper when he's closing out to you. And you really don't. Like he covers an immense amount of ground really quickly. He grew into his role offensively as Summer League went along. I thought he struggled a little bit more initially, but you could see as soon as a shot would fall, he'd feel a little bit more emboldened to take the next one. But his activity and just his overall, I was somewhat impressed by the willingness to have the ball in his hands as much as he did. I was expecting some Summer League teams to come out and really try to pressure him and see how he would handle that if he'd looked for somebody else to take over at times. And he didn't. He looked pretty competent and comfortable operating with the ball in his hands.
Yeah, and by the time the Thunder game rolled around, like he was attacking and getting to the line and like being aggressive. Like I thought he was really, really good in that Thunder game. I thought he was, one of the rawest players at Summer League, but still finding a way to make an impact in the first 3 games in a real positive, substantial way. Look, I probably would have gone a different direction if I was Washington, but I think Washington saw everything that they possibly could have wanted to see from him at Summer League, right? Like, I don't think you walk away from that disappointed in any way, shape, or form.
No, this is a growth process, as it is for every young player. You want to see them leave Summer League better at a lot of things or just more encouraging than when they walked in there. Bilal Coulibaly checks that box for me. He leaves summer league in Las Vegas a better basketball player than he was when he got there.
Yeah, I agree. Vucevic was, actually a little bit better than what I thought he would be for a 20-year-old at summer league playing, frankly, in the United States, I think for the second time in his life, something like that. Yeah, it was quite good, and particularly had the strong game against the Bulls to finish. I don't think he can defend, but, doesn't look like a bad stash guy for them moving forward.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I wasn't as encouraged, but he was fine.
Okay, number 8, Jarace Walker. I really liked what I saw from Jarace throughout the process. He just looked, especially in that first game, which was against, if I remember correctly, the Wizards. It was ridiculous. Like, he was just flying around everywhere. He had like a weak side rotation on a block that was fucking ridiculous, like completely absurd. Passing, like the driving at times, the ability to start the break in transition, rebounded the ball super well, ticked every box that the Pacers thought they were getting, and shot 17% from 3. But you know what the important number was there? He took fucking 7 of them per game.
Yep.
He was completely willing to take them. I would rather that happen than what we saw from some other guys. Like, I'd rather Anthony Black take 6 threes per game than only take 2 of them, even if he only made 1 out of 18 for the entire 3 games that he played. Jarace was willing to fire, and I'm glad he was willing to fire.
And he's so good defensively. Like, the thing with Jarace is you have to watch the full game to really appreciate the multitude of ways that he has an impact on things. He's not going to be a highlights guy. He'll stuff the stat sheet in a lot of different ways, but even that doesn't encapsulate the impact he has when he's out there. The shot has to come along. He is a functional passer and a guy who can make good decisions when he puts the ball on the floor, but he lacks like wiggle and bend with the ball still. He's a little bit square and doesn't have like the tightest handle in the world. So there are still improvement areas for him, but yeah, he's just going to be a really good NBA player.
I will say, like, he took 40 shots in those last 2 games, which is fantastic. Once Ben Mathurin was off, they were just like, all right, Jarace, go. I thought he looked better in the first 2 games generally, largely because I thought he looked better with like an organizer out there, like Andrew Nembhard. And Jarace was everything we wanted to see from Jarace. He just needs to shoot it at some point, and we'll see where that goes. Like, I was not as high on the shooting as I think some people were, which is, why I didn't have him in the same tier as I had guys like Brandon Miller and Amin Thompson and Cam Whitmore. But I do think that there are a number of things that will still provide value for him.
Yeah, he was fine. Up and down summer league for Ben Shepherd, but he had a couple good moments out there when he was making shots. I think the Pacers are in a good spot, really good spot.
Shepherd was one of the guys I was not wildly impressed with, I will say, just given how old he is. Made threes. Like, the big thing is like that the shot fell and the shot looked like it translated. Was quite invisible for the first 2 games that I saw of him live. Like, I thought that he really blended in like a way that you don't love to see, I guess is the way I would say it with Ben.
Yeah, I can see that.
And they had a lot of dudes. Like, Ben Mathurin was out there chucking in those first 2 games, and Nembhard had the ball a ton, and Jarace was out there getting his shots. Like, we'll see with Ben Shepherd. Like, he was one of the guys I probably came away a touch down on, but we'll see. That's really the only guys that we need to talk about. Like, Isaiah Wong was fine. Darius McGee, had, a couple of moments. Chibwe played. Yeah, that's Mojave King existed. Like, that's, I don't know that we need to dive deeper into them, but the team we do need to dive deep into is the Jazz, because even though Taylor Hendricks, who was the 9th overall pick, did not play, Bryce Sensabaugh, the 27th overall pick, did not play. 29th, 27th, 29th, I think. he went. Keyonte George played. And Keyonte George was fucking outstanding at Summer League. Was truly the pinnacle of what I thought he could be. And I think that I'm just going to have to take an L on Keyonte. The process is still hard, but the shooting is going to be good enough to where ranking him at 25 is just going to be wrong. And Keyonte looks like a guy that at the very least is going to be worth like a top 16 pick where they took him, I think, based off of what we saw.
That dude can shoot. What was it, 60 something percent from three across both where Salt Lake City and Vegas Summer League combined, something like that. I believe in the 60s on his catch and shoots at least. Like, he was really, really good. Assist to turnover ratio numbers, much better than what we saw at Baylor. Shooting the ball, really, really strong. He took over games and was incredibly confident in a way that we knew he would be. There's still some smaller things I'd like to see from Keyonte. Like, it was overwhelmingly positive from him, and I don't want that to get lost in the message I'm about to give. But, like, he wasn't the most efficient in terms of the decisions he made off the bounce. I thought he forced a few too many jump shots in there, just trying to get them up. I thought that, he needs to find that proper balance when he shares a floor with some more talented guys. And Utah's Summer League team was really, really good this year. I liked the way that they moved the ball kind of around him and got Keyonte shots. I just wished within the flow of offense, once that ball was moving, he would keep it moving a little bit more than he did. And I tweeted about this. There was one clip playing out in Salt Lake City in that Summer League where I think Agbaji started a scramble, made a left-hand baseline drift pass, and the ball started rotating around the perimeter. And once it got to Keyonte, he should have just thrown that instant one more pass. And instead, he pump-faked one dribble pull-up, his foot just across the three-point line. Like, those are the winning basketball plays that you're going to have to make. I understand that what he showed with the ball in his hands was utterly, incredibly impressive this summer. But long-term, those answers about how he fits into a winning scheme and plays with other really good players, that's what's going to be important for his development. That's why combo guards who can really light it up like him are so polarizing as prospects, because we started the show talking about the Tyler Herros and Tyrese Maxeys of the world. They can score and they can light it up, and they're going to get paid doing so. But you have to fit into something bigger than yourself. Love where Keyonte was. I think it's a great starting spot for him. Definitely outperformed where many of us had him. But he's got to find a way to fit into a really good team as opposed to being the star of one every single time.
Yeah, so Keyonte George averaged 18.7 points, shot 46% from the field, 39% from three, 75 from the line, 5.3 assists, 1.8 turnovers. Tyler Herro in his first summer league averaged 19.5 points, shot 40%, 33%, 96%, averaged, 4 assists versus 2 turnovers, right? So Keyonte, like, a little bit better than that, but in that ballpark, certainly. Tyrese Maxey, let's take a look at his first summer league. I think that he actually didn't play until his second year of summer league, but like Maxey in that second year of summer league was fucking absurd. He averaged like 26 points. These guys, I think, tend to, when they are polished and have real skill, really stand out at this level. The good news for Utah fans is that I think that, like, I feel great about him being able to, like, play this year now after this, like, truly. I don't know that I buy, like, Keyonte at, like, I'm trying to think of, like, do I buy him as like a Donovan Mitchell type, or do I buy him as like a Bradley Beal type? Look, I think that upside exists. Like, based off of what we saw, like, I wouldn't rule that out, maybe, is what I would say. I think J-Mac, bringing up, like, looks like a more young Murray more than a young Mitchell. Yeah, I think that I agree, like, stylistically, that's probably the name that he reminded me of. But Murray always has moved a lot more without the ball than what Keyonte does. To me, it's more Beal has always been the comp stylistically. It's like a Beal Eric Gordon kind of hybrid kind of guy,
Yep.
and that's great. Like that guy is 100% a starter and is going to be phenomenal. Yeah, I don't really want to nitpick. Like I think that Keyonte was just fantastic, and I'm fascinated to see where it goes. The process on these shots is hard on a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
He has to make the open ones when he gets them. But if he's their starting point guard, like entering the year, I'm intrigued to see how that goes. Like could go well. Could really, really go well. The process is a little bit harder, but he might be good enough to overcome the process. You know what I mean? This is a great question from Tyler Hines, actually. What takes someone from a Herro Maxey type to a Mitchell Murray type? Mitchell is different. Mitchell is in a different plane athletically than these guys, like completely different in terms of length, in terms of like speed, strength, all of it. I think it's like what takes a Herro Maxey type to a Murray, like Bradley Beal type. To me, it's getting extremely comfortable at your own pace of play, becoming not just a good ball handler, but a great ball handler in terms of suddenness and being able to separate from your guy. And then going from being like a good shooter to a genuinely great shooter. But to me, like the ball handling skill is probably the biggest skill. Keyonte, I think, has a lot of it, but it's a little bit loose right now. He'll grow into it, and I think it'll be great. Look, if we were redrafting, I would have Keyonte, somewhere in the lottery, I think at this point, based off of what we saw, the frame being totally different and him like looking skinnier and having more juice athletically is a huge difference maker for him.
It is, and not just skinnier, but he still uses his body and his frame to get to the free throw line at an incredibly real rate. Like if he is playing 30 minutes a game, he's going to shoot 6, 7, 8 free throws a game. Like he really gets to the line.
Yep, that's dead on. Okay, number 10 is Cason Wallace. I thought Cason was quite good as well.
He knocked down shots and he made winning plays. He did what Cason Wallace does. Just a very good summer league from him.
Yeah, played the role, knocked down catch and shoot threes, defended at a high level. His game against, what game was I there for? It was the first game that Chet played. Any help on this, Adam? Who did they play?
They're all blending together for me. I got nothing off the top of my head.
Yeah, I forget who they played, but it was the one where he like made like 6 or 7 threes and just looked completely at home and
Houston?
Solid and
Dallas?
Polished. It was Dallas. Now that you say it was Dallas.
Yeah.
You look at the overall numbers, like Cason shot 35% from the field and, had a negative assist turnover ratio. I think the last couple of games, kind of dropped that out a little bit, but I thought in general, he was very, very good. I thought in general, like going to have to improve as a scorer, going to have to improve as a driver, particularly has to be able to pressure the paint in some way. And we didn't see that. And, he was a solid small guard, I think is the way to put it.
I like Cason Wallace a lot. I think he just makes winning plays when he's on the floor. And that pops in summer league, no doubt about it.
Yeah, like I don't know that I need to like go super long on Cason necessarily. I thought he just looked solid. What wasn't great, wasn't terrible. I would imagine that he'll play a decent amount with the G League team this year because they are just loaded with guards.
Yeah. Shout out Ousmane Dieng. Shout out.
Yeah, Us is ahead of him right now. Yeah. I think like pretty clearly in the pecking order and should be ahead of him in the pecking order based off of what we saw at Summer League and based off of just what their needs are. Like they have Shea, they have Josh Giddey, they have Lou Dort, they have Jalen Williams, they have a number of these guys that can play the 2, and both Shea and Giddey can play the 1. So like they obviously bring in also Vasilije Micic. So like I'd imagine he'll be the backup point guard. It's going to be a lot of Cason Wallace with the blue this year. I think.
Yeah. And Trey Mann in there too. Yeah, there's a lot of bodies.
All right. The Mavs, Dereck Lively and Omax Prosper. Any strong thoughts?
Yeah, I'm actually going to have a video coming out on both of these guys and Jaden Hardy and kind of their summer league review in a lot of different ways. Like I think Omax just looks like a pro when he's on the floor. That's the only way I can just say. Like he defends, he runs the floor, he makes the right decision with the ball in his hands. He's a competent shooter. He can do a little bit more off the bounce and in transition than he showed at Marquette. Like just a good basketball player. Lively, offensively, I think that he and Hardy didn't develop enough pick and roll chemistry for his offensive game to really pop. There were some really intriguing short roll passes that he had. And then he is a menace on the offensive glass. Like when he wants to attack and get second chance points, Dereck Lively is going to be able to do so. Defense, it's always hard for rookies to come in and just be totally impact guys right away. I don't know how much we'll see Lively in the rotation or at least in like meaningful games for the Mavs right away this year. But I think the ceiling is still really high for him because he can do so many different things against pick and roll coverages.
Yeah, agree. It was fine, I thought. Struggled early. That game against Oklahoma City, I thought was a bit rough early on. But I think he'll look better with Luka and Kyrie. Is kind of where I'm at. Again, wouldn't surprise me if he played a lot in the G League this year.
Yeah.
But he might by the end of the year. Like, look, the pathway for him last year was like did not play a lot at Duke, and then was literally the best defensive player in college basketball by the end of the year. I think it's possible that ends up being kind of the pathway for Lively this year as well, in terms of like not being the best defensive player in the NBA, but being like a guy that can come in and get minutes by the time, February, March, April rolls around.
Yeah. And look, and he needs to be a screen and roll guy only on the offensive end of the floor, because like he still looks so robotic and maybe just a little bit turned around when he's trying to initiate dribble handoffs or do something else on the perimeter. Like he'll flip the ball to a guy coming off of a handoff, and he'll like not know which way to pivot to try to seal off his defender or where to stand. Like there are those little things that he needs to clean up and just get more fluidity at doing that probably are only going to happen for him in the G League.
Omax, real quick. It was funny. They just played Omax in the role he'll play in the NBA. Like there's like camp in the corner, defend, go nuts.
And he was great. He was great in that. He's always stood out to me as being a guy who excels in his role and knows what his role is. I always tell our young players on the team that I coach, like the best gift that I could ever give you as a coach is self-awareness. Like, please learn what you do really well and buy into doing that. And I think that is who Omax is as a player. That's why he pops at Summer League. That's why he's going to continue to pop and look good when he gets with the real Mavs.
100% right. Next up here is Gradey Dick. I thought Gradey Dick struggled in the first two games and was really good in the second two games. And by the way, like didn't really shoot well from three. Like he made 29% of his 3-point attempts. And in those second two games where they like really let him play a little bit more on the ball, get shots that he could, I thought he was outstanding.
I agree. I think that it's hard to mention Gradey Dick without also mentioning Markquis Nowell in some regard for Toronto, because they put the ball in his hands so much to try to create for Gradey or for other people. And I thought that Gradey surprisingly looked better when he had the ball in his hands in some regard.
Yeah.
And it was
let me just be clear. Nowell is like a hard pass for me.
Sure.
I'm good without him at this point.
Fun player.
Even after what we saw at Summer League, like that's just like not a player that I think he's too small. I think his decision making was horrible. Like I'm good.
Flashy passer, but I don't think he understood the objective of, hey, let's go get Gradey Dick some shots, please. Let's continue to get his confidence up. And those, as Summer League went on, and like you said, Gradey got into that role, I think that he settled in quite a bit more, showed a little bit more in the mid-range area and off the bounce than I was expecting. A good summer for him. Good summer.
Yep. I thought Gradey was good in those second two games. All right, last lottery pick here, and then we're going to bounce around a little bit.
Okay.
Jordan Hawkins, I thought was pretty hit or miss throughout for the Pelicans. Had a couple of high scoring games early, then really struggled, I thought, in his third and fourth games. Finished it up okay. Really, like what I think these games showed is that Hawkins is just going to be like very dependent upon just the shot. Like if the shot falls, he'll be valuable. But like there's not a lot there beyond that. You know what I mean? And we thought that coming into the draft. It's why, we ranked him at 20 or whatever. I had him at 20. I don't know what you had him at.
27. Yeah.
Yeah, like it just is the shot. He's going to have to shoot. He's one of the best movement shooters in the class, but he really just has to shoot at the end of the day. And if he doesn't, and he shoots 25% from three, like he did at Summer League, he's probably not going to be that valuable.
Yep. I thought the Pelicans team as a whole did a decent job of trying to get him involved and to maximize his moments when he was on the floor. So I will give them some credit in that regard. Like they found ways to get him shots curling off of wide pin downs or running some stuff for him. Darian Sebron is a guy I've always really liked. Is just like this jumbo initiator guy. Like that was a unique player to see share the floor with a guy like Jordan Hawkins, because in some regard, it'll simulate what you get with a Brandon Ingram or a Zion Williamson trying to attack, being that forward, playing with the ball in their hands. Fine summer from Jordan Hawkins. Nothing blew me away.
Yep. Okay, let's bounce around a little bit here. You and I both really liked Kobe Buffkin pre-draft. What did you think of Kobe's summer league?
Hit or miss, had some moments. There was one game, I can't for the life of me remember who it is against. I think it was his second game where he just kind of went takeover mode and had a really, really positive offensive showing. But other than that, like nothing too remarkable.
Agree. I thought he was okay. The thing that stood out in person is just he is painfully skinny. It's going to be a problem early for him, I think, in his career. He needs to put on some weight. I would imagine he will spend a good amount of time with College Park. Maybe like the aggressiveness defensively could get him like on the court a little bit earlier, but in general, I would expect him to probably spend a good amount of time with College Park.
Agree.
I thought Brandin Podziemski showcased exceptionally high level passing flashes while also displaying a lot of the concerning things that you and I were worried about coming in terms of, is he a 45% 3-point shooter, or is he, somebody who's going to struggle to separate and struggle to like really get where he needs to go? The passing flashes, though, were exceptional. I thought he was one of the best passers I saw at Summer League, if not the best.
Yeah, I agree. And I thought he got into the lane a little bit more than even I had expected. It didn't answer all of the questions that I have completely. Like he's still just a little bit stunted of an athlete in different regards. But the combination of his passing ability and how quickly he can get to either a pass or a runner in that mid-range area just makes him dangerous, even when he's got kind of even ground with his defender. So I was pretty pleased with how Podziemski played. The shot will fall a little bit better. Like he's probably not as good as he shot it this year at Santa Clara, but he's not as poor as he shot it in Summer League either.
The team that I really want to talk about is Denver. Let's start with Hunter Tyson, because I thought Hunter Tyson was probably one of the 5 best rookies I saw at Summer League, just point blank.
He's very good, and he just shot the leather off the ball too. Like that certainly doesn't hurt when you're over 50% from three.
But I mean, that's what he is, though. Like I don't know if he's a 50% 3-point shooter, but he is a shooter. That's what the skill set is. He's like a shooter plus skill set where he can really run off of actions. He can knock down shots off the catch. And more than that, though, it was like understands how to come off of screens to drive, how to come off of screens to get to that little floater game. Just a really high IQ, high feel player that I thought he looked by far the best of their rookies, followed by Julian Strawther. Like I thought, like I ended up with a top 50 grade on Tyson, and I'm like worried that it was way too low. I think he might be like a first round value at the end of the day.
Yeah, he looked good. Again, when you shoot 50%, like it's hard to not look good when you shoot 50% from three. With Strawther, like he still had a couple of those concerns inside the arc that we all talked about coming into this draft class, but he shoots, he gets them up in a hurry. He's great in transition. I thought both of those guys popped really well because they shot the ball in the way that you would expect them to, if not even a little bit better.
Yeah, Julian, I thought was not quite as good. Like he shot 40% from the field and 34 from three. Like Hunter was, just a flamethrower the entire 5 games that he was there. But more than that with Hunter, it was honestly like the cutting, the movement, like everything. Like Julian, it felt like everything was a play run for Julian in terms of when it worked for him. With Hunter, it felt like it was completely within the flow of the offense. And like, eventually they started running plays for him. You know what I mean? Like averaged 21 points per game, like was just really active and aggressive. I thought across the court, like he had 6 rebounds per game. The defense is going to be an adventure. Like I'm totally there with that, but the way he understands how to move, I think he is like a real potential rotation player. Also, we'll talk about Denver a little bit later. We might do like a team by team breakdown of all the summer league guys at some point. But I thought Hunter was quite good, and I thought he very much earned his first team all summer league accolade that he got.
Yep. Yeah, he was really strong. Where were you on Pickett? What did you think about him this summer?
I thought it was fine. Like I don't know. His game is something that I might be immune to, maybe in terms of like not totally valuing it in a way that others do. And I completely understand and respect it. There were moments I thought where he ran the offense really well. In general, like he got them in and out of their sets at a high level. Like he looked like a good veteran guard out there, I think is what I would say. How it'll work in the NBA, I don't know.
It's exactly the key point that I was going to bring up here at the end. Like he looked like he looked in college and looked like he would look in a summer league environment. I still don't know if I am swung to the point where I would say, hey, this is the guy I would hand the keys to with my second unit. Like, I don't know how I feel about that yet.
I think that's right. I probably would not, but like, did he look better than Jordan Ford? Did he look better than Jacob Gilyard? Like he looked like that kind of player to me, I guess. Yeah. But he's a rookie and those guys are, multi-year veterans. So there's time for him to showcase improvements there. He turns 24 in October, so not that much time, but there's enough time to where you can really get there. The next guy we have to talk about is my dear, sweet son, Leonard Miller. Leonard Miller was fucking awesome.
He's great.
He was awesome. It was absolutely everything you wanted to see from Leonard Miller, especially in those first 3 games. It tailed off a little bit near the end there in his last 2. 15.4 points, 8 rebounds, 1.6 assists, 1.4 steals, a block, like shot 45% from the field, 37% from 3. Again, this is a teenager. Like, seriously, this is a fucking teenager, and he's doing this. Leonard Miller is good at basketball.
He just finds ways to be productive, and at his size, with his just like fluidity and how he moves and the weird skill set he brings to the table, like you have to give that guy a first round grade, man. Like I don't get it. I don't get how he falls to 33. I really don't. But I'll tell you one thing that caught my eye about Leonard Miller. That little like bump into contact into the mid range, like I don't want to call it a step back necessarily, but almost like a floater jump shot combo. Like that was he hit that a couple times. It looked really functional for him. That's a great counter for a guy who I think loved Euro steps a little too much this past season with the Ignite. Like if you find that you're about to hit a body, like take the contact and then get to that little float game. Like really reasonable addition to his bag. I liked it.
Yep. And that's absolutely what he does. Like he got to that point, I think late in the year with the Ignite where he was just bumping and going. And I think he's going to be able to do it in the NBA, especially by the time he's 24. Like, think about that. Like, Leonard Miller right now is 19 years old. Think about how strong that guy is going to be with like the enormous shoulders he has when he's 24 years old. Like, he's going to be able to move people.
He's the same age as Jason Tatum. It's unbelievable.
He also shot 37 from 3. One thing that I told people after having seen him work out, I think he's going to be fine as a shooter. Small sample. We'll see what it looks like, once we get past these 5 games. The shot looked cleaner though, didn't it?
It did. It did.
Like, yeah, Leonard Miller's a dude, period, point blank. This is a guy that should have been a first-round pick, and Minnesota is going to reap all the benefits. Also, I can't imagine a better fit for him in terms of the scheme, the offense, everything than Minnesota, because Chris Finch is going to have him grab and go all day. He's going to be like, go. You catch it, you go. You grab it on the glass, go do your thing, Lenny. We're all good. I love it. Love it so much. Shout out to his pink suit at Summer League too. At the press conference after he got drafted.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Dude is an icon.
He's a good dude. I like Lenny.
Best highlight I saw of Summer League goes to Andre Jackson.
Wow.
Andre Jackson caught Peyton Watson on back-to-back dunk attempts in transition as a trailer, and it was the craziest fucking thing I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, that was the bright moment from him, though. That was
yeah.
Huge.
You know what though? Like, I thought he played the right way, and that team was just like kind of a mess in terms of the way it was constructed. But like, I don't know, man. Those blocks, I was just like, that's all I need. I'm good. Let's give me all the Andre Jackson hype that I can buy. Passed it well, made plays well. Like it was good. I thought that Andre played well. Yeah. The highlights though were catching Peyton Watson twice on back-to-back dunk attempts in transition. It was insane. A guy that we missed is one of your favorites. Come on.
Give me some Kobe Brown love here. 30-piece Kobe.
I think it was great. Even in the games where he didn't drop 35 like he did against the Sixers. Like I was there for his, I think it was the first game he played. Yeah. And yeah, he had like 11 points on 11 shots, but rebounded the ball super well, moved like an NBA player. Like you could see the vision at a super easy level.
Yeah, the shot didn't fall early, and then it exploded in that one game against Philadelphia. Like, again, he's going to settle somewhere in between all of that. But I agree. I thought he moved like an NBA player. Still saw the lateral quickness show up at times where he can't keep everybody in front or digs his heels in a little bit too much. Like, that's the improvement area that we need to continue to see from him. But he belongs on that type of floor.
Another guy that I think showcased some ability to belong is Jordan Walsh.
Yes.
I think Jordan Walsh was quite good at Summer League.
Really good. It shot the ball with confidence. That's the key for him. And again, another video that I just did, go over to my YouTube channel to check it out, kind of breaking down the Celtics Summer League. And with Jordan Walsh, the connective playmaking that he shows when he can get past his man on the perimeter is really high level. But he needs to be a credible threat to force them to close out hard to him in order to get to that connective playmaking reliably. And the way that he came out shooting it confidently and, going 4 of 6 from three in his debut really set the course for what the rest of Summer League was going to be like for him. Put the ball on the deck when you get run off the line, make positive decisions with it. I like what he brings from an intangible standpoint.
16 points, 4 rebounds, 1.6 assists per game. But the big number there was the 41% from 3 that he shot. If he shoots 41% from 3, he's an NBA player, point blank.
Really good rotational player because he does everything else at a high level.
Yeah, totally. Let's see here. Going down the order here. I did not love what I saw from Mo Gay. I know Hawks fans seem to be very excited about him, but that was Yeah, I was not super impressed with him defensively. I was not super impressed with him. He showed some flashes offensively, but it's still just like the full picture does not work for me in terms of what he brings to the table. Does not really finish well on the interior. Defense is a train wreck. Like he's a multi-year project still, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. If there's one team that I want to give a shout out to for building their roster the right way and just having a really well-rounded group, it's the Cleveland Cavaliers. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed watching them play. You know, you mentioned Houston, like all the dudes and the athletes that they had. I just thought Cleveland had the smartest roster in the way that they put everything together. Like Isaiah Mobley is an NBA player. I really like the way that Isaiah Mobley played. Good flashes
Yep.
from a guy like Luke Travers. You know, Amani Bates was the Amani Bates experience. If you really liked him coming into the draft, you're banging the drum even louder now after the summer league. And if you had some issues with his shot selection, you probably still have those same issues and wonder how scalable his role is going to be. But at the very least, like he looked like he is a talented enough player to deserve some minutes down the line.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to spend his entire season in Canton,
He
but
should.
that's going to be good for him. It's
Yeah.
going to be really, really good for him. Shot 41% on 8 3-point attempts per game. What I will say is this. I was very worried about him coming into Summer League in terms of like taking shots away from his teammates and older guys and stuff. He generally played really well within the flow of the offense with Cleveland. Like he did not like aimlessly attack. He did not like he took a couple of bad shots per game probably, but I'm okay with that. He can't take 8 bad shots per game like he took at Eastern Michigan. He needs to take 2 bad shots per game.
Yep.
That's start. It's a real benefit to him that I think he did that. And I think it's crazy that he made second team all summer league. That makes, he was frankly like not one of the 3 best players on Cleveland's summer league team. But I do think that what we saw from Amani was everything that we could have hoped to have seen from Amani from a growth perspective. Now he needs to sit down, needs to work on his defense, needs to work on his decision-making to an even further level. The shooting is there. He can absolutely shoot and has a chance to shoot at a level that will make him an NBA player. We'll see what he's willing to grow into in Canton, like over the course of the next year in the G League.
Yep. Also, Craig Porter Jr. is a dude. He's a dude.
I thought Craig Porter was really good. I thought Craig Porter was really, really good. 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, averaging 5 assists per game, 13 points, 7 rebounds, defended really well. He was better than Amani Bates on that team. Just genuinely, like,
so was
across
Mobley.
the board decision maker. Oh, Isaiah Mobley not making, like, look, you can drive yourself crazy with the all summer league teams. They are every year completely fucking batshit crazy. We need to just not think about them much. That will make things better. But I think Amani Bates looked like a guy that, like, I don't think I would take Amani in the first round based off of what I saw still. But I do think that what we saw was valuable and a real positive step for him moving forward.
Yeah, totally agree.
Like I probably would have ranked this Amani like 45th ish, maybe in that ballpark, right?
Yeah.
It's like a 20 spot rise for me. That's like a significant jump. From Basketball Genesis, Chris Livingston ? Was pretty invisible in the couple of Bucks games that I saw. I know he averaged 10 and shot 50%. A lot of that was just on cuts toward the rim and out in transition. Did not shoot well from 3. Didn't love it. From Cooper, any thoughts on the Kings guys? Adam, looks like you would have thought there. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, I think Keon Ellis is a legit NBA player. I love his defense, and he moves like an NBA dude. I love Keon Ellis.
Yeah, Colby Jones, I thought he was fine. Like, was a little bit more invisible out there than what I would have liked to have seen from him. I thought Jordan Ford was the one. Like, That's the guy that pops for me every time I watch Jordan Ford. But I also had like a top 70 grade on Jordan Ford in his draft year. So I'm a big Jordan Ford guy and always have been. I will bang the drum for Jordan Ford any chance I get.
Sure.
Glad you brought up Keon Ellis. He's probably the one that realistically I think was best with all of this. 24 seconds. Is Jared Butler a dude? Again, I had a first round grade on Jared Butler. I quite like him. They have too many guys, and he's gonna have to find another home, I think. Probably won't be with Oklahoma City, but yes, I think on some level, Jared Butler is an NBA player at the very least.
Totally agree.
Trace Jackson Davis. So he signed so late that like we didn't get enough of a chance to see him. He had the one good game where he had like 17 and 8, if I remember correctly. I'm trying to remember who it was against. It was like, I think it was the Raptors, if I remember right. Yeah, and like, did the typical Warriors, big stuff where he was away from the basket, was willing to pass, was willing to play make, did all of it at a pretty solid clip.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a perfect scheme and fit for him.
Yep. Last guy here, Colin Castleton, was I thought, probably the best undrafted guy, right? I had the highest undrafted grade on him of any player that didn't get picked. And I thought that he not only looked like a real like summer league get, but an actual dude. Like I thought he looked like he might be able to play backup center for the Lakers this year, point blank.
Yeah, he looked really good. It was either him or Craig Porter as being best undrafted guys. And Castleton, just with his size, he's going to make an easier transition into the NBA and being impactful from day one. Really impressed by. I don't want to say I was late to the party on a guy like Colin Castleton, but I did my deep dive film wise on him like maybe 2 weeks before the draft. And I came away just putting all the pieces together, being really impressed. Like, this dude can do a lot of different things. And he showcased that out there this summer. Like, he can do a lot of different things for a big man.
Yeah. 14, 9, and 4 for him at Summer League. Really good screener, really comfortable with the ball and dribble handoffs, great rebounder, blocks shots, like everything that we saw from Colin Castleton makes me think that like he should just be on a roster, point blank.
Yep. Totally agree.
Okay. That's all for the rookies. We've gone for 2 hours. This will be a 2-part podcast episode because I'm not going to want to record multiple times this week, I don't think. At some point, I think I'm going to have Robbie Callan come on and we're going to talk about Mission Impossible. At some point, I want to have Andrew Schlecht come on and talk about a question that Scowls Roar asked. How the heck does Oklahoma City cut their numbers down? They have like 23 players in their system. Genuinely, I have no idea. Yeah, number of really interesting, fun questions, I think, to figure out. That's about all I've got, Adam. Do you have any strong takes?
I don't really have any strong takes here. Again, just to reaffirm what we talked about at the very beginning. This was a good rookie showing top to bottom. I think a lot of guys showed some positive things. I was really impressed with the depth in this class and how it revealed itself early on. And that's a great takeaway to have from Summer League. This was a really, really fun year of games.
Really fun year of games, really good rookie class. I'm glad we could break it down and dive deep into it. Adam, tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people about your YouTube channel. Tell the people about the Box and One.
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at @theboxandone_. YouTube is my name, Adam Spinella, or my Substack page, theboxandone.substack.com. Some smaller pieces coming out this time of year, some Summer League recaps right now over the next week. So keep your eyes glued on the YouTube channel for those. And I'm going to start doing some in-depth prospect breakdowns. Just finished one for the class of 2024 today. 18 minutes on a guy who I think is my favorite prospect in this class. Yeah.
Who did you do? Is it an incoming freshman or a returnee?
We will find out soon, Sam, won't we? My favorite guy in the class.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Okay. My body is shutting down officially now. We said we were going to go for an hour. We went for 2.
Did.
Yeah. The sinus infection is taking hold, folks, and it's time to put my body out of its misery. Now I will go lie down. This has been the Game Theory Podcast. Please remember, rate, review, subscribe, do everything you can to support the show. We will be back later this week at some point. I don't know when. Until next time, we'll talk soon. Bye.